Before the dawn of time, in the infinite reaches of the cosmos, there existed the Great Hyne. Some say he emerged from the depths of the interdimensional rift, a being of boundless power and mystery, wandering among the stars. Weary of drifting through the endless void, Hyne chose a barren world to call his home. From his fingertips, he breathed life into the land, shaping the earth and seas, offering his own power by weaving his very essence into the planet, creating a sanctuary in the vast emptiness of space. For a time, Hyne's world thrived, but his peace was shattered by an unforeseen cosmic phenomenon, the Eternal Lunar Cry. The moon, his celestial neighbor, suddenly wept torrents of darkness, unleashing endless waves of monsters upon the planet. The cause of the phenomenon was unknown, but the energy behind it resembled Hyne's own. The moon, once a silent sentinel, had become a harbinger of chaos. Endless and relentless, the creatures poured forth, turning the land Hyne had nurtured into an eternal battlefield. The conflict lasted for centuries, and though his strength was beyond comprehension, even he could not stem the tide alone, after already releasing half of his power into the planet. He had grown fond of his sanctuary and refused to reclaim his power and leave, just to wander the void for centuries once more. He chose to stay and fight. To end the Eternal Lunar Cry, Hyne decided to sacrifice more of his power to rid the planet of monsters in one final effort, by moving the moon itself. With a surge of cosmic force, Hyne grasped the very fabric of the heavens, wrenching the moon from its orbit. His magic altered its path, breaking the cycle of endless despair and keeping it at bay. The Eternal Lunar Cry ceased, but the effort drained him further, leaving his once boundless energy even more diminished. With the moon's curse broken, the lunar cries persisted but became less frequent, occurring only in cycles. Yet Hyne was still not satisfied. Weakened, he could no longer protect his world alone, and so he devised a plan to create beings in his own image who could fight in his stead. He raised his hands over the land, and from the soil, the first humans began to rise, their forms taking shape under his watchful gaze. Humanity was born, not as children to be cherished, but as tools, instruments to combat the darkness that threatened his sanctuary. He endowed them with a fragment of his power, the gift of magic, the sorceress power. These first beings would later come to be known as the descendants of Hyne. The sorceress power was truly boundless, the ability to create life and form from within, but only when wielded by a being with a powerful body like Hyne himself. For humanity, using this power was limited by the strength of their mortal forms, which paled in comparison to Hyne. Despite this, the first sorceresses were still strong enough to wield the power effectively, allowing them to combat the cycles of the Lunar Cry, just as Hyne had intended. For a time, the sorceresses held back the darkness, wielding Hyne's magic against his foes. But as the years passed, Hyne, exhausted from his battles, fell into a deep slumber to recover, leaving humanity to guard the world in his stead. While Hyne slept, generations of humans flourished and transformed. The first sorceresses, though powerful, were not invincible. They fought against the monsters left behind by the cycles of the Lunar Cry, but they also began to dream beyond survival. Humanity looked to the stars, built homes, loved and forged bonds that surpassed mere necessity. Villages turned to cities, tribes to nations. Humanity began to question, to wonder. They carved symbols into stone, wrote stories of love and loss, and discovered the mysteries of the world Hyne had crafted. As they grew, so did their understanding of the power within and around them. Magic was no longer just a weapon against darkness. It became a tool of creation, a way to heal and to build. But with understanding came something Hyne had not anticipated. ambition. Humanity's gaze first turned inward, but soon turned outward. Each generation more curious and more daring than the last. They yearned for more, to conquer the unknown, to master the forces that shaped them, eventually challenging the very being who had given them life. When Hyne awoke, he found a world vastly changed. The beings he had created to serve as weapons now filled the planet, their numbers beyond counting. At first, Hyne watched over his creations with quiet curiosity. The once barren world flourished under his hand, and he found solace in the life he had breathed into the desolate land. Yet as time passed, a creeping discontent took root within him. The creatures he had formed, the humans, grew in number and started to thrive in ways he had not foreseen. Their cities sprawled across the land, their voices rising in joyous celebration and bitter conflict alike. Hyne observed them with mounting unease. What began as curiosity turned to suspicion and eventually disdain. For Hyne, humanity were slowly becoming his world's greatest threat. The noise of their lives, their laughter, their cries, echoed in his mind, a cacophony he could no longer silence. It was then that the seed of doubt blossomed into something darker. These humans, once tools of preservation, were now intruders in the sanctuary he had once nurtured with care. Displeased, he resolved to reduce their numbers. He struck at the heart of humanity, targeting the children. To him, they were nothing more than seeds of overgrowth, to be pruned like weeds. But he did not understand what humanity had become. He failed to see that despite humanity's flaws, they also had the potential for good. Among the countless families that suffered under Hyne's wrath was the House of Marin, a humble family of farmers. Like many others, they had toiled in the fields, tending to the land Hyne himself had blessed. Their youngest, a boy, was just 6 years of age when Hyne's decree swept across the land. The first signs were subtle, a fever that swept through villages, sparing none of the young. Parents held their children close, desperate to protect them from a sickness they could not name. Marin and his wife watched helplessly as their son's strength waned. The laughter that once filled their home faded into quiet sobs. The mother, a woman of faith, prayed to the very being who had created them, begging Hyne for mercy, but her pleas fell upon deaf ears. When the village elders declared it was Hyne's will that the children must be sacrificed to appease the god's wrath, Marin felt something shatter within him. The god who had given them life, who had nurtured the world they loved, had turned against them. That night he looked at his son's frail body, and a fire unlike any he had known kindled in his heart. He was not alone. For humanity, these children were more than just their offspring. They were hope, the embodiment of love, and their future. Across the land, mothers and fathers rose in defiance, wielding their sorrow as a weapon. For each child taken, 100 more stood to fight. The conflict that followed was long and arduous, but love and desperation would prove to be a formidable force. It was humanity's will against the divine power that sought to break them. The war with the god raged on. With the power of the sorceresses and the sheer numbers and resilience of humanity, they began to turn the tide. Weakened and facing a force he could no longer overcome, Hyne devised a desperate plan. Fearing defeat, Hyne offered a truce. He would grant humanity more of his power and half of his body, enabling them to wield his strength just as a sorceress would. Desperate for an end to the conflict, humanity accepted. With the deal struck, Hyne vanished, his remaining power dissipating as he withdrew into the earth, or perhaps beyond the stars. His true fate remained a mystery. The battle with the god was finally over, but peace was fleeting. Unable to decide who should wield the power, humanity turned on itself. A great war erupted as tribes fought over Hyne's remains, each believing they should inherit the god's strength and rule over all. The violence lasted for too long, scarring the land and claiming countless lives. Amidst the chaos, a strong leader emerged. King Zabalga, ruler of the Zabalga tribe. Driven by ambition and the promise of ultimate power, he led his people to victory, claiming Hyne's body as his prize. Yet, their victory was hollow. Despite their efforts, the Zabalgas could not command the power they believed Hyne had left behind. The body remained unresponsive, its energy elusive, frustrating every attempt to wield it. Desperate and enraged, King Zabalga sought answers. It was then that Vaskaroon, a wise sage who had spent his life studying the mysteries of the planet and Hyne's magic, appeared before him. Vaskaroon revealed the bitter truth. The half-body left behind was no source of power. It was nothing more than Hyne's discarded skin, an empty husk devoid of true magic. Hyne had kept the real power for himself, leaving behind only what was interwoven into the very fabric of the planet and the succession of sorceresses. Blinded by their lust for power, the Zabalgas had been chasing a shadow, while the true essence of Hyne's magic remained with him, untouchable and out of reach. Furious at the deception, King Zabalga vowed to hunt down Hyne and destroy him for his trickery. But Hyne was wise to the nature of humanity and had foreseen it all. He vanished, leaving no trace for his would-be pursuers. His escape was a final, calculated act of defiance against those who sought to destroy him. The Zabalgas never found him. Their anger, once a raging fire, cooled to a simmering resentment, and the tale of their fruitless search became a cautionary legend, a reminder of the folly of greed and the peril of seeking power that cannot be grasped. Thus, the world was left with the echoes of Hyne's legacy. Sorceresses bear his power, while humanity still struggles to wield the magic he left behind. But the question remained, would humanity rise above their past, or be consumed by it once more?
Didn't think you'd show up.
Whatever.
Always the same. No fire, no passion. You know you can't go through life like that, Squall. You'll just end up fading away.
Maybe. But I'm here right now.
Good. Then I guess that means you're ready to lose again.
I didn't come here to play your games, Seifer. Let's just get this over with.